All right, good afternoon, bird class. I see a lot of people commenting in the chat that you found the lizard. Great. This was one of the easier ones. I will bring some harder ones in the future. So in case you couldn't spot it, it is right there. Okay, so as I believe I mentioned last time, we've changed the schedule for assignments. The assignments originally due on January 29th are now due on February 8th. The assignments originally due on February 5th are now due on February 12th, and you will get your next new assignment on February 17th, which will be due on February 24th. So hopefully that way I won't get the assignments ahead of the material we've covered in lecture. Okay, last time when we wrapped up, we were working our way through some of the parts of the bird, and we were specifically looking at the legs. And remember, the knee is up here. It's hidden by all these feathers. It's inside the body wall, I should say. We have our tibiotarsus. We have our ankle down here. Then we have the tarsometatarsus. So this is kind of the bird's equivalent of our foot. This is the bird equivalent of our lower leg. And then we have the digits, which are the bird equivalent of our toes. So when we think about our legs, one of the things that you might think about is your kneecap. And your kneecap is specifically called the patella. And you can see that word written over here in a couple of places. Not every species of vertebrate has a patella. Not all mammals have patella. Not all birds have patella. This particular structure, in us it's a bone, but in other species it can be cartilage or it can be fibrous. So not even cartilage, but more like a tendon or a ligament, kind of fibrous. The reason I'm bringing this up is because ostriches have two of them. And you know me, I like my ratites. So there are two bony patella. What we think is going on, I have the wrong set of lecture notes here. Hang on just a second. Let me see if I can't find those. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the patella, and then I'm going to give you guys something to do in groups while I print out the correct lecture notes. So what is the function of a patella? Why do we have it? Why do some species not? And why do ostriches have two of them? This on the left is an X-ray, and you can see one patella here, one patella here. This is the femur. So this is way up where the knee is inside the body wall. This is the top of the tibia. And what we think is going on is that this, the tendon that connects the tibial crest here, the top part of the tibia to the femur, goes over in front of these two patella. And what this does is it allows this tendon to store energy, kind of like a stretched rubber band. So, you know, if you stretch a rubber band, it's trying to pull back on itself. And what we think is going on is that these patella allow that tendon to stretch like a rubber band. And then when the bird is bringing its leg forward again, it has that stretched tendon helping to pull the leg forward. So it requires less muscle and energy work to pull the leg forward while the bird is running. And we think this is really important for why ostriches can run so fast. Okay. Yeah, this is almost inside their body. So if you were, excuse me, if you were to look at the body of the bird, it would kind of come around here. So it's right up almost inside the body. Yeah, the femur's technically outside the body, but it is covered with feathers, and it really does, it's covered with the same piece of skin and all of that. So this part doesn't move very much because it is so closely aligned with the body wall. This is the joint that moves the leg that we can see forward. So if we go back here, the femur, let me erase this line. The femur would be like right here with the kneecap, and in the ostrich, the patella right here. Okay. What I'm going to do with you guys now is I'm going to send you guys to, oh yeah, go ahead.
So what do you mean by it's technically outside the body, but it's covered in the same skin?
Okay, let me see if I can all right. This is a tricky thing, and it's me being technical. So where's my whiteboard? All right, if we look at a bird, and we're going to look at the bird from the top. So it's going to have a body kind of like this. And there is a cavity. Oh, this doesn't let me do curved lines. Shoot. So there is, on the inside of the bird, there's a cavity which has all of their organs in it, right? This is the abdomen. The femur is right here. This is not a very good drawing program. So it's, you know, the hips are back here. The femur is underneath the skin that also encloses the body cavity, but it's not part of the body cavity. So what we would call the wall of the body is over here, while the femur is here. So it's a little complicated, but that's what I'm talking about. All right, so we've been talking about the external anatomy of the birds. And I'm going to come back in just a second once I've printed out some stuff and talk about more outside of the bird structures and anatomy. So what I'd like for you guys to do is I'm going to send you into breakout groups. Let's see. I'm going to send you into breakout groups of 3 or 4 participants. And I would like for you guys to talk about and discuss the need for people who have pet birds to have an avian specific vet. I've mentioned it several times. I'm going to keep mentioning it. So I'd like you to talk about that concept and why in some situations it can be problematic, and why it's an important thing and a good thing.
Are we including exotic animal specialists who also accept birds?
That is up to you. I think that would be a good thing to debate the merits of an exotic specialist, not just an avian specialist. Yep. Okay. Opening the rooms. Okay, looks like everybody's back, and I see Mary Kate has her hand up. Go ahead.
I just had a question for the lecture notes. Which week are we looking at? We're looking at week 4, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I didn't see the lecture notes in the week 4 like course thing, the content area.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know that I didn't see it in there.
Okay, I will make sure they are up after we're done here.
Okay.
I think what happened was I was working on them on Monday, and I just forgot to put them up when I finished.
You have a visitor behind you, Professor. And just as a visitor. We've all got visitors. Betsy
Yep.
has a bird.
Yep, we've got lots of visitors today.
Who's the puppy, Jess? We got to introduce the doggo.
This is the black and white one is mine. His name is Loki. And then the brown curly one, she's my aunt's dog. Her name is Hazel.
Well, hello, dogs.
No way, it's Loki. Hi, Loki.
Loki. I feel like I know Loki. Oh,
I love him. Me and Jess were grooming class partners last semester, and Loki came in for one bath, and that was the only one he did. Yep, he never returned.
Loki, what did you do?
He never returned. He was really freaked out the whole time, so it just wasn't a good idea to bring him back. Yeah, he didn't
Daniel
have-
asked what breed or breeds is Loki.
Oh, so I got him expecting him to be a border collie, but he came from a rescue, so they don't really know. They try and do their best guess, but he's mostly Springer Spaniel mixed with Beagle, Border Collie, and Lab.
Nice.
Okay, good. Now getting back to the topic of birds. What did you guys discuss while you were in breakout groups? I poked my head in and heard people talking about snakes.
Oh, that definitely wasn't us, but no, I said, Betsy said, okay, brought up a great point, and she said that like, she has a conure, I work with birds, and I know specifically, not saying regular dog and cat vets have knowledge about some knowledge about birds, they may have, because they may have similar body, like bones, but they're totally, they work differently, and I don't think they should to overlap that, because you could easily say, oh, like something's wrong with the wing, and it's avian vet would actually know, like instead of them guessing or making like a guess, you want to know exactly and what to do about it instead of someone,
Yeah, yeah,
want to have that extra, you want to have extra caution rather than.
yep. That's kind of what I've been trying to get across to you guys, is that birds are different than mammals.
Yeah, like I said, we all have this, they have same bones, like they have femurs, we have femur,
Yep,
they have a kneecap, we have a kneecap, dogs have a kneecap, but they
But if
use it differently, and if you mistake something
yep,
because you're thinking of a dog, that could bring up really serious problems, and you really don't want that.
yeah, you're exactly right, Laura. If if a bird has a broken bone, there are reasons why it's more complicated than a broken bone in a dog. And we're going to get to that when we start talking about internal anatomy. Anyone else have anything to talk about from the breakout group, or?
We were talking about both sort of the way that birds are more sensitive to stress,
Mhm.
and how that kind of connects to knowing how to physically handle them and also read their body language,
Yes,
and kind of understanding what they're saying.
that is an excellent point. Their body language is very different from a dog or cat. And people who just know dogs and cats cannot, as you said, read the body language of birds. They don't know what the bird's trying to tell them. Good, good. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the thing is, like, for the vet, if an animal's exotic, then it should get the correct care, like preventative care, because like a vet that works on dogs or cats doesn't know anything about birds. You need to go to the one that cares for them. I think it would be easier to go to one that's like a vet for all animals versus this just a bird vet. I think it'd be a little cheaper than going to a bird vet and maybe easier to get into. But you should also get the insurance plan that they accept for small animals, like birds. Make sure that they accept it. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep, yep. Good points, everybody. Okay. So we've been working our way through various parts of the bird leg, and now I want to talk about the feet, specifically talking about the bird's toes. So we're down here talking about the digits. Even though this is the equivalent of our foot, we don't generally consider that a foot. We just consider this part right here at the bottom of the foot. And toes in birds don't always face the same direction in all different kinds of birds. Some toes point forward, some toes point backwards, and the number of them that point forwards and the number that point backwards varies depending on the functions that are needed from these toes. There are quite a few different combinations. The ones we're talking about in this class are anisodactyl and zygodactyl. And yes, zygodactyl is a cool sounding word, absolutely. When we talk about these two, make up your mind. We talk about these two because they're the most common ones in the kinds of birds that we find in the pet trade. Anisodactyl is commonly found in perching birds. So this is going to be canaries and finches primarily. And this combination really provides a lot of good support if the bird is on a flat surface. And the one toe pointing backwards is important for perching, for sitting on a perch, especially when they're asleep. And I'm going to explain why they have to have one pointing backwards. Balance is part of it, but there's a neat little thing about the way perching birds can sleep on a perch that we're going to talk about on the next slide. Zygodactyl is found in birds that need to grab things. We're talking parrots. Parrots pick things up and manipulate them with their beak or hold them while they're eating. Woodpeckers, because they're holding on to tree trunks. And osprey, not a pet bird, neither are woodpeckers, but osprey use this to hold on to fish. So they have talons on both sides of the fish so they can get a good grasp of that bird. So when we talk about,
are they the only fish-eating birds with zygodactyl toes?
I doubt it. I suspect there are other predatory birds that also have this arrangement. I just know osprey off the top of my head. Okay. So that neat little trick about the back toe in birds that perch. There is a collection of tendons, just like in the kneecap. These tendons run from the femur down the leg, around the heel, and then they connect to the toes. So what happens when the bird sits down and has this heel bent is these tendons are now tight and they're pulling on the toes. And so they literally pull the toes around the perch. Having tendons pulling the toes around the perch does not require energy. The bird isn't using muscles to do this. It doesn't have to be consciously thinking about what it's doing. So they can sit in this perched position all night while they're sleeping without having to use muscles or, like I said, energy. Ah, owls. Okay. Yep, owls would make sense to have zygodactyl feet. All right. So the question comes up, do birds need 2 legs, 2 feet? Many, many types of birds can survive with only 1 foot. You'll notice our flamingo over here is just standing on 1 leg. Lots of birds will do that, especially the wading birds. They're basically, because they don't have that tendon mechanism, they're not sitting on a perch. This is a way for them to rest their legs. Other birds, even flamingos, I haven't seen any 1-legged flamingos, but I have seen some 1-legged shorebirds, which you wouldn't think because they could do that because they run along on both of their legs. But, you know, I've seen them, and sometimes they can live for years with 1 functional leg. The problem is, of course, what happened to cause them to lose that leg? Anything that results in a lost leg has a high risk of mortality related to things like infection. And of course, in bird species that need to stand and run and walk a lot, they have a lower likelihood of surviving because they're going to use more energy than they normally would, than their species normally would. Parrots absolutely need both of their feet. They can miss a few toes, but they need enough toes so that they can climb, because they are climbers. They'll climb up their cage, climb up the curtains, climb up anything they can, and they hold things in 1 foot, and they need to be able to do that. So here we have a cockatoo. This is zygodactyl, so 2 toes in the front. You can see this toe going back here. There's another toe on the other side that's going around the back of the perch as well. When we talk about birds' feet, we have to talk about their nails. Just like pet dogs and cats and gerbils and rabbits, birds need to have their nails trimmed periodically. Their nails will grow continuously. Just like all those other animals, there is a blood vessel or quick in the middle of the toenail. So you can see how dark these toenails are. Just like dogs and cats, some species have lighter colored toenails and some are darker. So it can be really hard to see that blood vessel. So what you need to do is trim them just a little bit at a time. Just take a little bit off. If the nails are badly overgrown, you might need to do it very frequently. Trim a little bit, give it some time for that blood vessel, that quick to pull back, trim it a little bit more. There are things that can be done to help reduce the frequency of nail trims. One of them is to have rough textured perches. So you'll see, you can't really see all that well, but on this foot, you can see the ends of the nails are touching the perch. If the perch has a rough surface, that can help keep those nails worn down. Having the bird walk on, if you've got a tile floor, walking on a tile floor will help keep the nails down. Do not use sandpaper perches. So when I'm saying rough perches, I'm not talking about sandpaper perches. I'm talking more like this green perch here. I think this is made of I think it's actually made of a type of concrete. So it's not as rough. It's not rough in the same way as sandpaper, but it does help keep the nails down. When we talk about perching, most of the time when you buy a bird cage, it comes with a straight wooden dowel. And all of them are the same size. These are not ideal. Birds need variety in their perches. Different widths of material, different textures of material. Perches that are bent are good perches to have. This diversity of size and texture helps keep their feet in good condition. Imagine if you stand all day and you wear the same pair of shoes every single day. If those shoes are not perfect for your feet, you're going to have pains and aches in certain places. Using different shoes helps reduce that problem. It's more of a problem in people like me who are a little bit older. If I wear the same shoes to teach in every day, every week, and I'm standing up for 6 hours at a time, I get pains in my feet. I'm going to get pains in my feet anyway, but if I don't mix up my shoes, it kind of becomes a more chronic problem. Bird perches should be washed periodically. When we are washing bird perches, and a lot of things that we are cleaning with birds, you want to use what's called a 10% bleach solution. So what this means is you mix 1 part bleach and 9 parts water. It doesn't matter what size those parts are, but it's going to end up being 10% of the bleach out of the bottle. This is really good for cleaning any kind of animal enclosures because it really kills bacteria. Really does a good job on bacteria. You can also use dilute vinegar. It also has antibacterial properties and will help get anything really nasty off of them. Rinse well. So make sure you get all the bleach off. It shouldn't smell like bleach when you're done. So if we look at these natural, dilute chlorohex, yep, that works as well. If we look at these branches, these look like natural wood branches that somebody has taken the bark off of and put a little connector on the end so that you can attach it to the wall of a cage. You can also get natural branches from outside. They're great. They often have a little bit of bend to them, which is good for the bird, both mentally and physically. But they need to be cleaned first, and they need to come from an area where herbicides and insecticides are not used. Birds are very vulnerable to herbicides and insecticides. It's okay for those perches to move a little bit. It's not okay if the perch falls when the bird lands on it. That's not going to do you or the bird any good. One of the things that having that diversity of perches is important for is this. It's called bumblefoot. We see this in other animals as well. Bumblefoot's just a general term for infection on the feet. So you can see there's an open wound here, and this part of the foot is just swollen. This is, I'm pretty sure this is the chicken. Bumblefoot really should be treated by a vet. These infections are hard to heal because most birds spend most of their lives on their feet. Very few birds lay down. That's not normal for most species of birds. So bumblefoot can be caused, well, by a lot of different things, but there are two things that you can do to reduce the likelihood that your bird will get this. Having the diversity of perches is one thing. If all of the perches are the same size and the same texture, then every time the bird is on a perch, it's putting pressure on the same part of the foot. And that can make it more likely to get a wound. This
Is that essentially like a bed sore?
Yes, it's a lot like a bed sore. This is why sandpaper perches are a bad idea, because they can damage the bottom, the skin and the scales on the bottom of the foot and make them more likely to get this bumblefoot. The other more common cause of this is a dirty bird cage. Feces that are on perches can grow bacteria. Feces on the ground can grow bacteria. And in addition to having this bacteria, the pH of bird feces is around 3 to 4.5. So it's kind of the pH of orange juice or something. So it's quite acidic. And standing in bacteria, especially if there's an acidic environment, that can damage the skin on the bottom of the feet, leading to an infection in bumblefoot. The other external ailment or disease that birds get are infections with mites. So there's a lot of different kinds of mites. It's a very general term. We're talking about external parasites, or at the very most in the skin, not in the inside of the body. They're similar to things like fleas and ticks. Some of them hop on the bird and then hop off. Others of them will burrow into the skin. So you can see on this parrot, this poor guy, if you've got a really good monitor and you have this showing really big, you can see the pits, which are the locations where a mite has burrowed into the skin. And on the foot here, there are mites that have gotten underneath the scales, and the bodies of those mites are literally pushing the scales away from the skin. So we get these raised scales. Mites need to bite the bird for a blood meal. Isn't there a version of mange that birds can get? If there is, it's going to be related to these mites, and it's not very common. I can't swear there's not. It makes sense that there is one. But I don't know for sure. When I started teaching this class, I worked with a good friend of mine who's an avian vet to figure out what diseases to talk about. And so she gave me the most common diseases that people with pet birds see. So those are the ones I know about. Sorry. Okay. So mites, like ticks, need blood in order to reproduce. Bird mites can bite people, but our blood is not good for them for reproduction. So they're not capable of reproducing if they get a human blood meal or other mammal. Some mites are large enough to see. They're pretty small. It's not like you're going to see, they're not going to be big like a flea. They're smaller than fleas. But many of these are completely microscopic. Birds do get an external parasite sometimes called a flat fly that is big enough to see with the naked eye. It's most common on things like owls and birds of prey. And it's flat so it can get up underneath the feathers. And it's no fun when those things start coming off of a bird and climbing onto you while you're trying to restrain it for the vet. Not that I've had experience like that. Okay, so birds can get mites. They're going to have to get mites from another bird or from a dirty cage. So if your bird goes outside, maybe they go outside during the summer or for an afternoon, they can get mites from wild birds. They can also get mites when they're young and come in with them. So a young bird should be quarantined for at least a month or two to make sure they don't have mites before you expose them to other birds. This is especially true if you buy them from one of those large-scale pet stores that has a cage with 20, 30 parakeets in it. Those are much more likely to be exposed to mites than if you get it from an individual breeder. Or if you get a bird from the SPCA, they're more likely to get mites. They've been exposed to other birds. Chickens can also get these mites. Mite infestations need consultation with a vet. You may need to treat the cage. You may need to treat your house. Do not call up a pest control company and have them come out and treat your house. They do not know which chemicals are safe to use around birds and which are not. So you want to go to a vet. If the vet says you need to treat your house, find out what the vet recommends for treating your house. If you do need to have a pest control company come out, you can tell them, I want you to use this product. And don't trust pest control ads or someone who sells pest control products for advice. They do not know what is safe for your birds. And if you look at their websites and you know anything about insects, they don't know anything about insects. They'll put all kinds of pictures up about this is a brown recluse spider, blah, 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 blah. If you see these, you need to have us come out. Yeah, and the pictures of a harmless spider. So their websites are full of misinformation. So talk to the vet, figure out what the vet recommends. You can reduce the likelihood that your bird will get problems with mite with good husbandry, a good diet, regular time outside the cage, mental stimulation, physical exercise, and a relatively low stress lifestyle. Any of us who are happy, healthy, don't have a lot of stress in our lives are going to have a good immune system. Birds are less likely to get a heavy infestation of mites if they're healthy. You should not use pesticides to try and prevent an infection. And products that say all natural may or may not be safe for your bird. So really emphasizing mites, the bird goes to the vet. Okay, so that is our external anatomy section. What do you guys want me to go back over? Just ready to move on? Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about, we're going to do a little bit more detail on small cage birds. These are birds that are called passerine birds. And we're going to focus on canaries and finches. These are the most common birds that you're likely to see. And with finches, specifically the zebra finches are the most common ones that we see in the pet trade. When we talk about zebra finches, canaries, and a group of birds called the society finches, these have been domesticated for a very, very long period of time. The first canaries were domesticated in the 17th century. We are in the 21st century now, so that gives you 300 to 400 years ago. Domestic canaries, domestic zebra finches do not look exactly like wild type birds. To some degree, the coloring has changed. More importantly, size has changed and behaviors have changed. So these species, the zebra finch, the canary, and the society finch, do very well in captivity. There are other species of finch that have not been domesticated very long that don't do well in captivity. A lot of these are still taken from the wild for the pet trade. So these can be in the illegal pet trade, or they can show up at large scale pet stores as well. Wild caught birds are not going to do as well, obviously, as these domesticated species. So these are some of the other types of birds. This is an the site that I looked at, it called it a double barred finch. I've also heard these called owl finches. These are Goulion finches, and this is a cordon bleu. You're getting ahead of me again. Okay, so I like finches and I like canaries. I like these small songbirds. They are more susceptible to drafts and cold weather, so leaking, cold air leaking into the house. Because they are not handled most of the time, most people do not handle their pet finches and canaries. They tend to be, a vet visit can be dangerously stressful. When we talk about these birds, can you hold them? Yes, you can train them to be held. And if you do train them to be held, they're more likely to be less stressed at the vet. So it's not likely to be as dangerous. Canaries, their average lifespan is between 8 and 16 years. that is the average lifespan. With good care, the lifespan is more like 20 to 30 years. We're going to see this as a recurring theme when we talk about the different groups of pet birds. The average life expectancy for birds in captivity is usually somewhere around half of what it could be if they got the appropriate care. Zebra finches, it's even worse. They usually survive 3 to 6 years. But with really good care, they can also live to be 20. We're going to talk about what I mean by good care. But I do want to get to the canaries. Okay. So, canaries are sensitive to certain gases. Birds in general are sensitive to gases, more so than humans are. And they're also sensitive to high levels of carbon monoxide. So miners used to take canaries down into their coal mines. If the canary, it was easy to monitor because canaries sing almost constantly. And if the canary died or quit singing and started breathing hard, the miners knew there was bad air quality and they needed to get out. This device has an air cylinder for the canary. So if the canary starts having breathing problems, they could put it in this type of enclosure, seal it up, and put air in from this canister, because the miners didn't want the canaries to die. They got sad, and this was a way to save the canaries' lives if they were exposed to bad air. I hadn't heard about the enclosures to keep them from getting the bins, but I'm not surprised. That's cool. Household chemicals can harm your small songbirds. It can harm any of your birds. Certain cleaning products, certain fragrances, Teflon. So Teflon is a product that's been used to line cooking pans and especially pans, but also some pots. And if you put a pan or a pot on the stove and you don't have food in it, that Teflon will get into the air and that can kill small birds. New carpets and furniture also release chemicals that can harm birds. And of course, pesticides. If you have someone come in and spray for pesticides, that's bad for your bird. So what do we feed our canaries and finches? Well, it turns out seed is not a complete diet. The seed that we buy in the pet store is not as diverse as wild birds would eat. Even seed specialist birds in the wild eat other things. They'll eat green things like leaves. They'll eat small insects. And in the wild, they get exposed to UV light. So UV light is important for vitamin D. We make vitamin D when we get exposed to UV light. UV is part of sunlight. Inside, your bird's not getting exposed to that. So vitamin D is important. We do make pelleted diets for birds, including small songbirds. Pelleted diets are a more complete diet. Not all birds will eat pellets. So that can be tricky, getting the bird to eat pellets. So generally, when I talk about bird diets, whether it's pellets as the main part, or if you're doing a seed diet, I recommend adding things like mealworms. I recommend adding fresh fruits and vegetables. We'll talk some specifics about which fruits and vegetables are best. With these small songbirds, when I've kept them in the past, when I had a canary and a zebra finch, secondhand birds that were in bad condition when I got them. I would collect seeds from the wild to supplement their diet, either grass seeds or seeds from perennial flowers. We could add fruits, strawberries, grapes, apples, not the seeds of apples, but just the flesh of apples. Banana, these are good. Leafy greens, except for kale. Broccoli, carrots, sprouts. Birds love broccoli. They will eat that really well. Kale has something called oxalates in it, and oxalates are hard on the kidneys. We have a larger body size, we have larger kidneys, so we can eat kale as long as we don't eat it too frequently. It's not going to damage our kidneys. Birds' kidneys are much smaller, and these oxalate crystals can literally, cause physical damage to the kidneys. So I'm going to type this list up here. So things I recommend: wild seeds if there are no pesticides in the air. Strawberries. Most berries are good. Apples, no seeds. Bananas. This is not going to be a complete list. I recommend looking at either, and I don't know how to pronounce it. There's a LAFEBAR, I think it's spelled. There's a site that they have up that has lots of good information, and there are lots of avian vets that have information. Leafy greens are good. Broccoli, carrots, sprouts. You may have to literally shave carrots, especially for these small birds. A parrot, you can just hand a chunk of carrot to. Mealworms, cooked egg, these are all good things. Then there are the evil foods. So you can see right here, we've got some broccoli. I can't quite tell what this is here in the bowl, but this is, a nice mix of food for these canaries. The evil or poison foods that you should never, Maddie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that oxalates will bind to calcium and basically make it so that the animal cannot absorb it, which can lead to, I don't know too much about birds, but it can cause to something called metabolic bone disease in reptiles and amphibians. I'm not sure if they get that, but it can cause like really bad issues.
Good point. Yes, so they can also cause a problem with calcium uptake. Birds need calcium in their diet, especially females. So kale would be especially difficult or harmful to female birds. Okay. Birds should never get chocolate. Onions, garlic, avocado, which is one of those things that gets put on this list. It's not clear that all parts of the avocado are harmful. But just to be safe, we know there are some parts of the avocado that are harmful, so let's just keep those away. Many, but not all, house plants and garden plants. Some fruit seeds and fruit pits. Candy. Highly processed people food. When I say highly processed, I'm talking about the kinds of things you pick up at the gas station, Quickie Mart, when you're on a road trip and you just, we all eat junk food.
I have a couple typos for you.
Oh, up here?
Yeah, fruit
Oh.
pigs and avocado, the second vowel is an O.
Okay, unfortunately, I can't go back and correct these once I click on another spot. Thanks for catching those, though.
Well, I like fruit pigs. That's
I
fun.
like that too. That's funny. Mushrooms and dairy products. Birds don't produce dairy milk. They cannot absorb dairy products. Okay. So there we go, fruit pits. Okay. So what about supplements? A pelleted diet with some fruits and vegetables added should be complete and require no supplements. Yep, I'm getting to the UV. So a lot of pelleted diets have vitamin D in them so that you don't have to worry as much about the UV. Vitamin D breaks down pretty quick. So yes, we did lose the good stuff list. I ran out of space. We do need some exposure to UV light. They sell lots and lots of different types of bulbs that can be used to provide the UV wavelengths. You can buy bulbs for plants, fish tanks, reptiles, anything like that that can provide that. But that's pretty much it on a pellet diet. If we're talking a seed diet, we need to make sure that the seeds are fresh seeds. There's a trick to help you figure this out. You go into the pet store, you buy a bag of seed, you take it home, you put some of the seeds on a wet paper towel, fold the paper towel over, and the seeds should sprout. There's a good chance they'll get moldy too, but if they don't sprout at all, they're old seeds and they're not going to
How quickly are they going to sprout?
Usually you'll start to see the first sprouts within 24 hours. Sunflower seeds, you're right, those will take longer. I'm talking about the small types of the smaller seeds in a seed mix. That's why you put the whole mix in there. So seed diet, make sure your seeds are fresh, add a lot of diversity in other foods. Small songbirds should not have grit. Grit is something that they sell at bird stores. It is unnecessary and it can cause compaction in the bird's digestive tract. I do recommend cuttle bones. These are a great source of calcium. If you look at a cuttle bone, if you open a package and you hold one in your hand, there will be one side that feels kind of chalky and one side that feels kind of slick. The chalky side is the side the birds can get calcium from. And a full-size cuttle bone is going to last small birds for months or even years. So they can last a very, very long time. Petal bones are also good for helping smaller birds keep their beaks in good condition. We are going to have a special discussion on diet in general, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it here. Vitamin supplements are difficult to successfully give to birds without overdosing them on the vitamin, and they should never, never be put in the water. Because if you put vitamin supplements in the water, any bacteria in the water are going to use those vitamins to grow faster. Cuttlebone is not an edible clay. It is actually, I don't want to say it's a bone, it's a calcium-rich collection of minerals that is found in cuttlefish. Yeah, cuttlefish are not a fish. Cuttlefish are related to octopus and squid. So they are a mollusk, specifically in the cephalopod group. Yeah, people don't always name things logically. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna post the notes that I have that I've been working with today. I'm gonna be trying to update some of the notes for the lecture next time. And I will try and remember to get them posted when I get them finished. Any questions? Okay. In that case, I will see everybody on Thursday. Bye.
Thank you.